Good afternoon. Welcome to our third and final panel of the conference entitled Presidential Powers and the Bush Legacy. We have three more distinguished colleagues up here on the stage and great participation and attention in the audience. So we look forward to continued question and answer at the end of these presentations. And I will make one more announcement about your cell phones. Please turn them to silent as to not interrupt the presentations. First caller is Dr. Thomas Keck, who is an associate professor of political science in the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. He is the author of Party, Policy, or Duty, Why Does the Supreme Court Invalidate Federal Statutes, which appeared in the American Political Science Review in 2007. This work received a Houghton Mifflin Award for Law and Court section of the American Political Science Association, recognizing the best journal article on law and court published by political scientists that year. Prior to arriving at Syracuse, Dr. Keck was an assistant professor in the Department of Political Science at Oklahoma University. He received his BA in politics from Oberlin College and his master's and Ph.D. from Rutgers University. Dr. Mike Nelson is the former professor of political science at Rutgers College. In addition, he teaches in the college's humanities courses, including the search for values in the light of Western history and religion. Nelson is a former editor of the Washington Monthly and has published 22 books, the most recent being How the South Joined the Gambling Nation, The Politics of State Policy Innovation with John Mason. This work recently won the 2008 VOK Book Award from the Southern Political Science Association. Prior to his arrival at Rhodes College, he was a professor at Vanderbilt University in the Political Science Department, where he is currently a visiting professor. Dr. Nelson received his BA from the College of William and Mary, and master's and Ph.D. from Johns Hopkins University. Finally, our last speaker today is Dr. Gleaves Whitney. He'll be speaking on the anatomy of a divorce, conservatives versus George W. Bush. Dr. Whitney became the first full-time director of the Hauenstein Center in 2003. During his tenure, he has been the architect of more than 150 public programs and launched a website that just recently reached over 10 million hits. Prior to his arrival at Grand Valley, Dr. Whitney worked 11 years in Michigan Governor John Engler's administration, serving as the senior writer, chief speechwriter, and historian. He graduated with honors from Colorado State University, was a Fulbright Scholar in Germany, he did his master's and doctoral candidacy at the University of Michigan, and in 2006, he received an honorary Doctor of Human Letters from the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. Dr. Keck.
Thanks to Austin and to Gleaves and Mandy and everyone else for hosting this great event and having me be a part of it. I wanted to start by offering an alternative title for my talk from the one that's in your program. In the program, it's The Biggest Legacy, Bush's Federal Court Appointments. And if I'm remembering this right, when Gleaves first invited me to be a part of this way back, a while back, it was a title that he had suggested, or maybe Mark Rizal had suggested, and I wasn't 100% convinced, right? And so the title kind of gives a lot away, Bush's greatest legacy, although there is that question mark there in the title, so I went along with it. But in the wake of last week's election results, I'm gonna offer a new title for my preliminary assessment of Bush's federal judicial appointments, and that is one vote short. Right, one vote short, and here's why. For a generation, for longer than I've been alive, in fact, Republican presidents have tried to remake the Supreme Court. This started with President Richard Nixon, whose 1968 campaign included frequent denunciations of war and court decisions, particularly in the areas of civil rights and school desegregation. The effort picked up steam and escalated with Ronald Reagan, who not only attempted to make several transformative appointments to the Supreme Court, but also implemented an unprecedented program of ideological evaluation of judicial nominees throughout the federal bench as well. It continued through the first President Bush, suffered an 8-year interruption under President Clinton, and then resumed under our current president. Over the past 41 years, Democratic presidents have appointed 2 Supreme Court justices. All right, over the past 41 years, just 2 from Democratic presidents. The rest have all been from Republicans, and it's been this remarkably sustained effort to remake the federal courts. in the image of the Republican Party. Now, despite that effort, the judicial revolution sought by these Republican presidents has not come to pass, I want to argue. I'll fill in the details a little bit. On a wide range of legal conflicts, a wide range of constitutional disputes, they have pushed the law rightward, but not so far as they wanted it to go. Right? They have, on a wide range of constitutional disputes, including some of their top constitutional priorities, they remain one vote short on the Supreme Court. And given the vote last week, they're not going to get that next vote at least any time in the next 4 years. And if, this starts to become a little more speculative now, but if Barack Obama's presidency turns out to be a reconstructive one, right? The kind of presidency that political scientists describe as one that remakes the political order, brings a new governing majority to power. If, we don't know for sure yet, if that comes to pass, if Obama serves a second term, then we will look back on 2008 as the peak of the GOP's control of the judicial branch, after which it suffered a long, slow decline. Now, if I had more time, one of the things I would do today is tell you a little bit of the story of Bush's lower court appointments, right? We all know about John Roberts and Samuel Alito, but there's been a remarkable series of political conflicts over the past 8 years regarding appointments to the federal appellate courts as well. Bush has appointed about a third of our sitting federal appellate judges, and the numbers are similar at the trial court level, about a third. And if you count them up together with the remaining Republican appointees from his father and from President Reagan as well, a clear majority of the federal bench, approaching but not quite at 2/3, has been appointed by Republican presidents. Nonetheless, Democratic senators did manage to throw up some roadblocks in front of this effort. About 20 of Bush's appellate court nominees have been blocked by the Senate. A big handful of those because Democratic senators included that those nominees were simply too extreme, too ideologically extreme, and they stood their ground. And despite a fairly strong effort by President Bush, the Democratic senators managed to keep them off. And another big handful of those 20 simply had the misfortune of being nominated late in President Bush's lame duck second term, where Democratic senators, as the Senate has always done in advance of a presidential election, they have slowed down the confirmation process in the hopes that they could preserve some of those vacancies to be filled instead by the next president. If I had time, I'd tell you more about that story. It's a fascinating story, and if people have questions about it, I'm happy to talk a little bit about it. In the limited time that I have, what I want to do instead is focus on the Supreme Court, right? Focus on John Roberts and Samuel Alito and the degree to which these appointees, which surely are among President Bush's most significant legacies, right? John Roberts and Samuel Alito are both in their 50s. They are both, assuming they remain healthy, right? They're both likely to be on the Supreme Court for quite some time, long outliving the administration itself. But the interesting and significant question is to what extent these appointees, together with the other justices who they have joined, have remade the court, right? And to offer a preliminary evaluation of that. Again, they're going to be there for a couple decades. We don't know the extent to which they will remake the court, but to offer a preliminary evaluation, I thought what it might be helpful to do is run through a couple of the key victories and defeat on the Supreme Court during the Roberts era, 3 years so far, from the perspective of three main constituencies of the Republican Party, right? So social conservatives, economic conservatives, and foreign policy conservatives. And let's real briefly consider what each of these groups has gotten from the Roberts Court.